Hey, from Salt Lake City, Panama City Beach, everybody. Thanks for being here with me. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. It's going to be about a 20-minute presentation, and then I'll be taking questions at the end. So I really appreciate everybody making the time to watch the talk today. It's going to be a lot of good information, stuff I've learned from my last about year and a half on Medium. Hi, Megan from Boston, Diane from Toronto. Thanks everybody for being here. All right, I'm gonna get started. All right. So today I'm going to be presenting 3 SEO lessons from 2 million views on Medium. And if you're here, you probably know what SEO stands for, search engine optimization. And there's going to be a lot of good information for everybody, no matter what you write about. I'm Dr. Derek Austin. You may know me as the physical therapist who writes JavaScript. And JavaScript, if you're not familiar, is the programming language used on the web. I have 11 years experience as an SEO consultant. I used to run a local SEO consulting agency, helping small businesses get found online. And I started writing on Medium in August 2019. So it's been just about 15 or 16 months now. And Happy New Year. I hope everybody has a fantastic 2021. And I want to share a little bit about me before we get going with the presentation, because no matter what your background is, you can learn SEO and be quite good at it. So I'm a 31-year-old digital nomad from Richmond, Virginia, currently living in Puerto Morelos, Mexico. I'm a board certified and licensed massage therapist, as well as a strength and conditioning specialist. I graduated high school at 15 and then got my bachelor's and master's in bioinformatics, which is the application of computer science to biology, at age 19. And then I went back later to switch careers from science to massage therapy, and I continued my education by becoming a physical therapist in 2014. All 3 of my degrees are from VCU. Go Rams. They were supposed to be playing basketball today, but their game got canceled because of COVID, of course. And until March of this past year, I was their team massage therapist for men's basketball and men's tennis. A lot of people are curious about why I moved to Mexico, especially during a pandemic. And these pictures are the view from the apartment I'm renting at sunrise and sunset. And I'm paying a lot less than I was living in Richmond. So writing's really given me an opportunity to do something I love, traveling. And a big part of my success has been through SEO. And we're going to talk about dollars and cents, what SEO has done for me, and why it generates a lot of traffic, and how to best use it for your business or to support your writing. On Medium, I've gotten over 2 million views in 15 months on the platform, with about 144 articles on Medium. That means my average article has gotten about 15,000 views, but it's very top heavy. The articles I write that rank well on Google get many more, 10, 100, or 1,000 times more views than the other articles. And because I have stumbled on some topics that do really well on Google, over 90% of my views just come from Google. Sometimes you'll hear people say coming from organic search as compared to paid search, paying for Google ads. Sometimes you'll hear people say my views are coming from SEO. And we're going to look at some very specific examples. But I want to give you guys the lessons right up front. How do you rank number 1 on Google? Well, that's what SEO is. So what's the secret to search engine optimization? SEO seems like a black box for a lot of people, but it's not. I've often talked to other writers who I find really talented, and as soon as SEO comes up, it's almost like they freeze. They're not sure what it is, it sounds really technical, but at the end of the day, it's something everybody wants. You want your articles to get found by people who are searching for that topic, especially if you're writing technical articles, how-tos and instructions, but just in general, we want people to see the work we publish. And getting ranked by search engines is a great way to do that. So we just say SEO, meaning let's get ranked by people searching for our content. And SEO is not a black box. I'm going to have 3 really straightforward lessons that you're going to be able to apply today to your own projects. The secret to SEO is using the right keywords on the right domain. And it sounds too good to be true, right? The trick is the right keywords, the right domain, and the third lesson, which we'll get to later, which is be specific. Let's break it down with an example. So this is my best performing article on Medium. By itself, it's had about 300,000 views. It ranks number 1 on Google out of 132 million results. And a lot of people would say, wow, there's some magic involved. There's some sort of trick. And the reason it ranks so well is because competitors aren't using the right keywords and competitors aren't using the right domain. So I want to back up for a second and talk about my story on Medium. I only started writing on Medium to help me change careers from physical therapy back to web development. I hadn't been doing much programming for about 5 years, and so I wanted to refresh my skills, learn modern JavaScript programming, learn some modern techniques for web development. And this is a problem I ran into, like every single person who has ever used JavaScript has run into. How do you check for a null value, an intentional absence of a value in JavaScript? I typed it into Google and there wasn't an article. Think about that for a second. Hundreds of articles tackle this subject, but not a single one of them had the title of what I or any other programmer would type into Google. And so I read some of the articles, there was some okay information, and I learn best by communicating with others. And so I wrote the article I wanted to find with the title I would have used in Google. And I've written over 100 other articles. And what I found is I wasn't trying to rank on Google, but some of the articles rank really well on Google. And that's where I've gotten these SEO lessons to be able to share with you. So what does this mean in terms of earnings and results? This is that same article, and it's earned me about $600 through the Medium Partner Program. It still earns $10 to $30 a month. And the majority, 94% of its 300,000 views have come outside of Medium from chiefly Google. In fact, you can do better than number 1 on Google. And that's something I think a lot of people don't realize, is that search engine optimization is not only winner take all in terms of you need to be on the first page, because less than 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 1,000 times do any of us actually look at page 2 of Google. But Google wants to find the correct answer to give you and wants to give it to you in a spoon-fed, featured way. And that's something we all like about Google. So that's called becoming the featured snippet. And what does that look like? So here's another article I wrote. Is -0 a number in JavaScript? We can see here 85 million results on Google for those keywords. And when I search what is -0 in JavaScript, I get all the real estate. I didn't pay for this. You can't pay for this. This is better than an ad that you could pay $20 or $100 per click for on Google. It's the featured snippet, and it still comes from using the right keywords on the right domain. So if somebody is looking this up on Google, then they're going to get their answer. In fact, they may not even read my article because Google is going to spoon feed them the answer out of my article's text. It's almost like asking Alexa a question and she reads you a snippet from the Wikipedia page. It's just trying to answer the question, but you can imagine this is going to drive more traffic to my article than just about anything else I can do. There's something else on Google called People Also Ask, which is similar to featured snippets, and it gives you the right keywords. The answer to the question, what are the right keywords? Google tells you the right keywords in the People Also Ask section. And so here, this is the how to check for null in JavaScript. I scroll down the page and there was a People Also Ask box. I open it up, and this was one of the questions suggested by Google. It's the same exact question, phrased a little bit differently. And you can see that for this question, I have my article showing up there. And you can imagine that in itself is going to drive traffic. But really, the important thing here is that Google literally tells you what keywords to use. And I discovered this because I put in keywords into Google and there wasn't the article I wanted to read, particularly the article with the title that I would use to describe it. Looking at these suggestions from Google is something called search listening. And search listening is if you go to the Google homepage and you've ever typed in am I, the answer is always am I pregnant, which I think is kind of amusing. Maybe it's not, but these are the things people actually type into Google. Looking at these things that people actually ask, and people use Google in basically one of two ways, either with one or two keywords or with very long searches, typically in the form of questions. Using these search suggestions is called search listening, and really it's the new keyword research. So if you're familiar with SEO, you've probably tried to do keyword research, trying to find those right keywords. But doing keyword research and trying to decide if you should write about shoes or sneakers is looking at it the wrong way. The right way to look at it would be to look at what people actually type in. Not voter registration, but am I registered to vote Denver? And that level of specificity. That's lesson number one. Use the right keywords. And I'd recommend you check out a free search listening tool called Answer the Public, which gives you keyword research from Google search suggestions. Another way of framing it is, what would you actually type into Google yourself? Is there an article with that title? If not, then write it. Over on the right side, we see those search suggestions again, and we also see answerthepublic.com and the results you get from that. For JavaScript, when I use the keyword of JavaScript, they suggest I write articles. Are JavaScript and Java the same? Are JavaScript strings immutable? Can JavaScript be used to make apps? Can JavaScript be used for hacking? Those are all articles that have real potential for ranking on the first page, or for as number one, or as better than number one, the featured snippet on Google, in the same way that writing an article about JavaScript versus Java is not really the right keywords. That brings me to lesson number two. Use the right domain. If you can get your keywords in your domain, that helps. An example here would be testingjavascript.com. If you search testing JavaScript, Google doesn't know if you mean testingjavascript.com. So they're always going to give you that result. Otherwise, I'd recommend publishing on Medium. It's free and it tends to rank well on Google. So you might, if you're familiar with SEO or online marketing, thought about finding domain names like the left-hand side, where you're going through all these steps, all these things to consider, and ultimately the only one of those that matters for SEO is keywords. And then you need to target the right keywords, and you'd be going all in on those keywords and can't change it. Anything else really doesn't matter. Things like the extension, or if it's catchy or whatever, doesn't matter in the least for SEO. And the tough reality of SEO, and it's a bitter pill to swallow for a lot of us, is that you'll never outrank sites like New York Times, Huffington Post, Wikipedia, Medium. It's just a fact of how Google's algorithm works. Links equal rankings. That's called PageRank in Google's algorithm. Millions of pages link to pages on those domains, with more every day. How many pages link to your domain? Exactly. The domain itself in Google's algorithm doesn't really have what we might call domain authority. Google's not deciding that Medium is a real source of information. What happens is people link to pages on Medium, and every page on Medium links to the homepage. And that is sort of the process where we see domains ranking better. Wikipedia is the prime example of SEO because it's narrow articles on a specific focus that everyone in the world links back to. That is really tough to beat. But when you're on a site like Medium and there's so much content that people are linking to, or if you get in a major publication online that so many people are linking to, you can rank. If you're not using the right domain and the keywords people searching for aren't in the domain, you're not going to rank. Which brings me to lesson number 3. Be specific. Your title needs to exactly match your target keywords. That means for technical details in the HTML title tag, your main heading also needs to exactly match your target keywords. Your main heading is going to be the largest font on your page, and it may be marked up with an H1 for heading 1 tag. Your stub, meaning the URL, literally the words in the URL, should also exactly match the title. Having great content on a title of a page that's FAQ, and the heading says FAQ, and the stub says FAQ.html is never going to rank for anything. I think as webmasters, we often think in terms of how somebody might look at our site as a user, but ultimately we want to think about how a search engine might look at it. And the search engine is going to try to figure out what our site is about, and that needs to be very specific. Here's a great example. So this is that article I mentioned before. Those keywords are very specific: JavaScript and -0. I've highlighted where they show up. The title, H1 tags, and URL stubs for a Medium article like this will all be the same unless I've gone in and messed with them. And then the H2 tags will be the kicker up above and the subtitle down below. This article will never rank for the search, what are signed zeros in computer programming? You could imagine, hey, I'm answering that question, right? But I'm not to a search engine. I'm only answering a single question, and you can only ever really rank for one search online. That's what I mean by be specific. No other web page should have the same title that you want to use, or you're wasting your time trying to compete with it, because other pages may have already linked to them and they could be way ahead of you. You can't target multiple keyword phrases at the same time. You have to go all in on one keyword phrase. In the jargon, we say long tail keyword phrases, and all that means is using 3 or more keywords. You want to talk about best wide sneakers for runners who are fast, not wide shoes. That brings me to a great question that a lot of people have. Should you ever rewrite an article for better SEO? No, never. You should always write another article using a different set of keywords. Google prefers new content. And this is something that's happened to me in my professional work as a writer in the last year. I wrote an article with an SEO focus, and the company I was contracted to asked me if I would be willing to rewrite it. No, I would never rewrite it because that company doesn't know what they're doing. As a writer, I would want twice as much money because it's going to be difficult for me to rewrite an article that I've already finished, that's already targeting a certain set of keywords, compared to just writing another article, especially when writing another article is going to serve them better and drive more traffic. The only time you should rewrite an article is if the facts are wrong. And one of my articles that does best on Medium was incomplete. It was technically incorrect, and there were some problems with it when I first published it. But because it had good SEO, people started letting me know, hey, could you expand this article? So I went back and rewrote it for content, not for SEO. Let's apply these same 3 SEO lessons to something you've already published. Well, you want to be linking back to your old articles as you write new articles. In SEO jargon, that's backlinks increase page rank. You want to use the right keywords in the text for your links, what's called the anchor text. You want to use the right domains to generate backlinks. You're going to get a lot more out of backlinks from Medium than backlinks out of some other domain. And you want to be specific with your links. My article about checking for null, I link back to it in every other article I write because it's convenient, and I always link back with check for null or null, and it's gonna help it keep ranking. And to wrap things up, I want to talk about why you would use SEO, and it's really best for lead generation. So we're gonna have 3 examples here. On the left, we have an SEO article, and these other 2 are what I would call viral articles. An SEO article is going to earn 10 or 20 times less on Medium compared to a viral article. Viral articles are going to have better engagement, better read times. SEO articles are going to have more traffic. So if you're selling a course, if you want email newsletter signups, if you just want people looking at and reading the content, go with SEO. If you want people spending time reading things in detail, if you want to make money with your articles on Medium, go with a viral title. Your most viral articles on Medium can earn twice, 10 times as much than an article with fantastic SEO. So the one on the left was how to check for null, the article we were looking at. In the middle here, we have why the Guardian switched from MongoDB to Postgres, which is a very viral title. Oh, a big company switched from one brand to another. And on the right, we have are backticks slower than other strings in JavaScript? Not something people search online, but it's something where if you saw that title on Medium, you would want to know the answer. So distribution and going viral are more important for your success in the Medium Partner Program. So to recap, I've talked about the what, where, and how of SEO. You want to use the right keywords. I'd recommend search listening. You want to use the right domain. Medium, unless you have a real strong case for making another argument here, because somebody can write your same article on Medium and outrank you. And then what was the point of doing SEO? You need to use the right domains. And finally, be specific. Don't do too much. You need a really targeted article of 3 to 5 to 10 keywords. Use it in the title, the heading, and the stub. And don't try to do too much. You can always write another article. So please connect with me. You can find me at drderek.com. Right now, that'll bring you to my LinkedIn. You can sign up for my email list, drderek.com/email. About once a week, I write about Medium and or writing. I'm also available for work if you want to hire me. I do paid mentoring with writers. I do SEO consulting, writing contracts, and web design and development. And finally, I'd be happy to take your questions. So let me switch back to the chat. Great. So I know Arlie Payton had an article here. When I decide to sacrifice Medium and Google traffic for publishing on your own website, when do you decide? You should never decide. You're never going to get SEO on your own website. So, and finally, our Medium backlinks do follow. Yes, they are. Do follow. Really, the only place you would publish that they're not is Wikipedia or other public sites. And yeah, I'd be happy to answer any other questions. So if not, thanks everybody. I appreciate you being here with me. And I hope this has been helpful to you. Best of luck out there, and feel free to reach out to me with any more questions. Happy New Year. Sandy asked, is it best to publish on Medium first and then your own website? You can't put the same content multiple places online. The technical answer to that is there's a feature called canonical URL where you can tell Medium that the real version of the article is on your own website, and you're going to get some of the benefits of having published on Medium there. But that is where it kind of turns into a black box again. Does it hurt you that you're no longer really on medium.com? It very well might, although you may get some benefit of having the content there. And yeah, you really, if you put your content in both places, Google is just not going to show one of your pieces of content in the search results because it's duplicate. It may remove both results because you are spamming. Vikram asked why it's not a good idea to post on your website. Well, really, take any article on your website and put in the title into Google. Are you number one? If you're not, it's not working for you. Because when you're that specific, you use the whole title as your search, you should be number one. If you're not, you're using the wrong domain. It's a technical discussion to talk about why certain domains rank better, but basically it's because there's 10 million articles on Medium, and every day people link to those articles. And then those articles link to medium.com, and then medium.com, the homepage, links back to your article. And that's why your article on Medium will rank well, whereas your article on your homepage will not. Sandy asked if the title has changed. Nope, you need to rewrite the whole article. Sandy, you need to look up something called canonical URL on Medium and try and do some research about that. The content, if it's more than about 90% similar, Google is just going to flag as duplicate because it makes sense, right? We don't want people to be able to copy paste our content and outrank us. And Google thinks you're doing that. Sean asked me to say more about search listening, and search listening is flipping on its head the idea of keyword research. You could do keyword research by looking at what keyword. Should I say shoes or sneakers? Well, shoes has more results. Maybe I should say shoes. People search for shoes, not sneakers. But the reality of search listening is people who are ready to buy sexy shoes are typing in buy women's shoes that are affordable or well-made or whatever. People actually type in a lot more information than shoes. Who's Googling shoes? Like somebody who just learned what the concept of shoes are is the person putting in shoes into Google. So search listening is using a tool like Answer the Public or just doing it yourself. What comes up when you Google what you write about? But yeah, and like I said, feel free to connect with me, LinkedIn and other places online. I love talking about this kind of stuff. And, I see a lot of writers writing a lot of great content and a lot of content that should do well with SEO. But if you break any of those three lessons, you're not being specific, you're not using the right domain, or you're not using the right keywords, you're going to have problems ranking online. Sandy asked, other publications outside Medium sometimes syndicate my articles that are on Medium. Is that bad? Again, you would want to go onto Medium and say the real version of this article is at the other publication. It's at my website. And it's really easy to do. You go in, settings, canonical URL, you paste in the real URL. It goes into the data. Google finds the Medium page and says, okay, well, people can link here, but we're going to count it for there. Is it bad if you leave them both? Yeah, because then links to one or the other aren't going to count. When you use what's called canonical URL, you're telling Google, this is the real source of truth. I'm doing this on purpose, not, I don't know, maybe they're stealing my stuff. I don't really know. But yeah, you're welcome, Ben, Sandy, everybody. Thanks for being here with me. I appreciate it. Definitely check out the networking segment in between talks as well. I know I went over a little bit and hope everybody's been enjoying the event. Of course, if anybody has any more questions, you can find me drderek.com, connect with me there, and be happy to work with you individually, try and get those questions answered. So thanks a lot. Goodbye from sunny Puerto Morelos. Hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the conference and a happy new year.